Hello again, and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are broadcasting live from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday around 5 p.m. We're coming up a little late on this show. It's going to be posted about 6:25. The shows also appear on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. Check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. If you have questions or comments, send an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder. That's 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, we'll respond either by email, text, or telephone, whatever media that I get on that phone. We'll try and respond the same way. Normally, this is a show about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. This is kind of a special edition about the new proposed firearm laws here in Nevada, courtesy of our new Democratic governor and the left side control of the Nevada State Legislature, that is the Assembly and the State Senate. We have pretty much lost control of the legislature to the left side in this last election. My guest today is gunsmith and Friends of the NRA host, Chris Eifelt. Chris, a bit of your background, if you would.
My wife and I have owned CCS guns here in Las Vegas for, like 27 years now, and we're located at Sahara and Rainbow, right by Harley Davidson up there. Our main business is gunsmithing. We also sell guns, but mainly we fix and repair them.
All right. And actually, you're hosting a large banquet in a couple of days and still made it over here to do the show.
Saturday night. Friends of the NRA banquet is going to be at Palace Station. Doors open at 5 o'clock. We still have a few tickets left to get in, but we have some very spectacular firearms that are going to be on the banquet. One of them being a rifle that was donated by Chris Kyle's widow, Kaya, and it will be raffled off at the banquet. It's autographed by Taya, and there's also one of her autographed books in there.
And Chris was?
Chris was the American Sniper. Chris Kyle has the record for the most confirmed kills. He was killed a number of years ago upon returning from Iraq. He was killed here in the state of Texas. And he is greatly missed by special forces around the world.
A great hero, and obviously you couldn't put a price on that firearm.
You really couldn't. It is going to be raffled off. There's going to be 54 cards that are in the deck of cards, including the jokers and everything. They're going to go for $100 a piece, and it will go that night. And the money that we raise through the Friends of the NRA, half of it stays right here in Nevada. Last year, we were able to grant out $220,000 here in Nevada. The other half goes to the national organization, and it's used not for the political end, but for ranges and printing materials like Eddie Eagle, home protection, how to set your house up so that your guns are safe and stuff like that. It's a very good, worthy project, so we're very proud of it.
Good. It's rare to see a firearm like that is literally priceless.
It is.
Anyway.
The provenance is there. That's the big thing.
In Nevada, the Review Journal and an incredible mishmash of local media reported this week a pair of gun control measures got their first and possibly only hearing before a state legislative committee. Last Monday morning, the bills are being pushed by Nevada Democrats who say more gun safety is needed because of the 1 October 17 murders here in Las Vegas and other shootings. It goes on and on, but that's their primary mover. The first one is Assembly Bill 153, which would make it a crime to leave or store a gun where a child can get it. This is the least annoying of the two bills, I guess.
Yeah.
The problem with it, of course, is it puts criminal prosecution on people that where a child gets a hold of their gun, and the details are very thin as to what the bill is going to say. If a family leaves a gun out accidentally, or their curious 3-year-old gets into wherever they thought it was safely stored and shoots himself, I find there's very little point in putting the parents in jail. But this is one of the ramifications, and the difficulty, of course, is when the children are a little bit older, a child, somebody under 18, 17-year-olds can get into pretty much of anything, and even guns that are very safely stored can become a problem because you could be committing a crime if that gun is misused. We can talk about that for a minute if you'd like, Chris, but I'd like to spend the time really getting into the.
Yeah.
That's the least dangerous. So you can comment on that. We're going to jump right into the other one.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we really promote through the NRA is there is no substitute for education. Children need to be educated about firearms just like they're educated about everything else. And like the Eddie Eagle program says, if you encounter a firearm, get away from it, get everybody else away from it, and go get an adult and tell them. Make sure that nobody touches it.
Stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult.
Exactly.
Duh, I remember.
Yep.
I used to teach that.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there is no substitute for education. And when we were growing up, we actually had rifle and pistol teams in school. I was 18 years old before I found out that you could buy a pickup that didn't have a gun rack in it. I thought they all came that way. And of course, I grew up in the Midwest, coming from South Dakota and Minnesota area. And everybody brought a shotgun to school in the fall because it was hunting season. And there were more guns in that school than a little bit. And nobody ever got hurt.
Yeah. Pretty much experienced the same thing growing up, even
Yep.
though I grew up mostly in Los Angeles, but we had a military school I was in, we had a rifle team, and we had a little range under
Yep.
one of the buildings and so on and so on. And
Yep.
of course, in high school, I was in ROTC, and we had
Right.
all went and did war games at
Yep.
Fort MacArthur, shooting up with blanks the opposing rotten high schools that shouldn't have been there. Anyway, the bill that is really dangerous and more sweeping is Assembly Bill 293. I should tell you this was a joint hearing they had on Monday morning with the representatives of the state assembly, our lower house, and the state senate, our upper house. So the hearing they got was for both branches of our government, our state government. 293 tackles 3 issues. The Democrats are calling it the 1 October bill. It includes a statewide ban on bump stocks, like other devices, like the devices used on Route 91 Harvest Festival gunmen. A nationwide ban took effect last week. AB 293 would cement the bump stock ban in Nevada law, but they're already illegal federally as of now. So it's not something we're going to do. We're not going to make it any worse in our legislature, except that the wording contains really difficult language that we don't have all the wording yet because it's still being amended and whatever. But this was the hearing. That was your time to protest, was last Monday. We're doing this show on Thursday after that Monday hearing. More importantly, what happens is anything under the Nevada bill, anything you do to a gun to make it more likely to fire faster is covered. Like making a light trigger pull or stoning the feed ramp to make it feed better, all of that could be encompassed. The way I read what we've got so far in the proposed bill, it's still in
I think
adding to it at the moment.
yeah, I think they're doing it on purpose. They're making it pretty ambiguous so that they can make it say whatever they want it to. And if they decide that they don't like a certain thing, like doing a trigger job, then they're going to include that. So it's,
I mean, I worked as a gunsmith. You do it for your entire career.
yeah,
And
yeah.
obviously, if you, particularly home amateurs, and some professional gunsmith, if you do something to make the trigger pull smoother on any semi-automatic, you're very likely to get an occasional double. When the gun fires, the vibration will set it off, and so on and so on. That happens all the time. When I was in gunsmith school, we had a Remington Model 11, a Browning Auto 5, to those of you that don't know the difference, that big humpback 12-gauge shotgun. And we discovered that about anything that goes wrong with that gun makes it fire full auto.
Yes, it
It
does.
fires very slowly full auto because it's a long recoil action. But that was the most common complaint. I went to shoot a duck and all 5 rounds went off, you know. Or 3 rounds, as the case may be, depending on well, that was years ago when it was a little wilder out there in Oregon where I took the training. But anyway, AB 293 has a real dangerous part of it. It allows local governments to strengthen their own gun laws. Right now, gun laws are the purview of the state legislature. We put that in the law a couple of years ago that only the state legislature can make gun laws, except local areas, local jurisdictions could regulate where firearms are fired in their jurisdiction. And the bill exempted by law firing ranges, designated shooting clubs, trap clubs, so on and so on. So they could make a rule that says you can't shoot you can't shoot in the catch basin out toward Red Rock that we have here, a big normally dry catch basin and so on. Or you can't shoot within 100 feet of a roadway or toward a house. That's all well and good, but they could not ban shooting unless it was a specific thing. It's up to the state legislature. So often things didn't change. Now we allow the state to preempt that. When this came up last week when I was speaking to my resident gun attorney, Don Green, he expects some real blowback from this. If local governments can use this new law to eliminate private party transfers, eliminate gun shows altogether in their jurisdiction, they can also expect to reinstate firearms registration or outlaw so-called assault weapons and magazines over 10-round capacity. Those items are all in discussion. So we may have, for instance, the city council here in city of Las Vegas is very far to the left, as is the Clark County Board of Commissioners. I think we're going to see this when the wording of this comes out and they're allowed to interpret what they want. According to Don Green, we might, when we were talking at the last gun show, we may be talking at the last gun show that would take place in Clark County.
Yeah.
Maybe in the city of Las Vegas, just as likely now.
I can foresee taxes going up immensely because everything that they have proposed here is going to cost a lot of money. For registration, to put registration back in, I forget what Metro's budget was before, but it was pretty good size for doing registration. And it's going to be really tough if they want to eliminate or limit magazine capacity. There's a lot of magazines here in Clark County.
There are, and they're modeling this after the legislation in California, because we have so many California people living here now, and they brought not only their money to get away from the taxes in California, but they also brought their political views in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I'm from California. Most everybody I know that lives here is from California. But we're running to now, they're trying to write the regulations that each city and each county and each township will look at, and the townships are included in that. That's the smaller jurisdiction. The county has divided into townships, and they have their own regulations. When I was a constable in Boulder Township, south of here, where Boulder City is now, it surrounds Boulder City. We had some gun laws in the township that were not in violation of state law, but we had, you can't shoot over here and you can't do this and that. The magazine capacity and the ban on what they consider an assault weapon,
Yeah.
register them or turn them in, is what appears to be the likely result we could have. I don't know. The NRA is doing a lot of work on this. Are we
Yeah.
getting anywhere?
The NRA is doing everything that they can. The biggest thing is they bring in their legal experts, and they talk to our Senate and Assembly up there, and it's kind of like talking to a wall. They can talk until they're blue in the face, and they're going to vote against it anyway. But it's going to be one of those things that eventually is going to go to the Supreme Court. It's just how long is it going to take it to get there? How much damage are they going to do to our firearms laws in the meantime before it does get there? And it's going to make it hard for all individuals here in Clark County, and even in the whole state of Nevada is going to have a hard time.
I've talked to a number of people about this issue as it came up. Obviously, the people at the gun shows are concerned about losing their livelihood. I talked to several police officers, and I get mixed reviews. One complained to me quite a bit about, well, it's hard to tell when we find a gun, if the guy's not, we have to run him to see if he's allowed to have a gun, and because people don't know the serial number of their gun anymore, even their maker, model, or caliber. That's a separate police problem, recovering stolen property. If you have a gun and you don't have the serial number and make and model written down someplace, do that. Metro is no longer keeping those records for you. They may start again under this bill, and like I say, the officers took a variety of sides of it. One saying, well, now, we can't trace guns and find out where it was sold, and that's not really true. He just doesn't understand how the law works.
Yeah.
The feds have information, if they want to dig it up, about every gun, where it was sold. When I had my store, and they currently do it now, one of the things that's included in your FFL regulations is you're required to be available within so many hours if they want to do a hot trace on a gun. In other words, they call the manufacturer, there's somebody there with a computer who can tell you which wholesaler we sent it to. There's somebody required to be there at the wholesaler who can tell you what dealer we sold it to, and so forth, to the gun dealer, who gets out of bed and runs down to his shop if he doesn't have it computerized at home, and most of them don't by serial number, of course. So he looks through his 4473 copies, and he say, yeah, I sold that to Fred Smith, such and such a street 3 years ago or 2 weeks ago, and or we've had them that are 22 years ago, honest to God. I want to say to the ATF guy on the phone, you want me to run out in the parking lot and see if he's still here? They said no without even understanding that was a smart-ass remark. But there is a way to trace the gun that way, because the feds don't destroy their records. It's just a little more time-consuming, and those 24-hour, you got to do it, only happen if somebody uses a gun to take a shot at a congressman or something. They trace those fairly fast. But they did so when the they were shot at the baseball game.
Yep,
And
yep, they were able
you
to trace
you
the red
rarely
flag.
see that done, but it can be done.
I
The
would-
problem is, what do you do with all your magazines if they become illegal? If they tell you to register your gun and you have to register your gun, I would suggest you register the gun and vote the bastards out of office.
Absolutely.
The idea of you're going to keep a gun for self-defense by burying it in your backyard,
No.
it's not usable for self-defense.
No.
There would obviously, they want to grandfather so far, that's one of the proposals, existing magazines.
Yeah.
But
That
they
only
would
goes so far.
need their, how many magazines do you now own?
And
So
why do
they're
you
going
have
to
so
mark
many?
them or some way or other to tell
Yeah.
that you owned them already. Then what happens when they do an audit 3 years later?
Then you got
and
2
you've
more
got-
magazines.
2 more you weren't supposed to have, then those are
Yeah.
illegal. They do that in California now.
Yeah.
They have strike teams going around and picking up. They match their list of felons against the list of gun owners on computer. And they've got a couple of strike teams that are going around and picking up guns from people they know are felons. This law gets really complicated, and we are in for a giant problem. Congress is trying to do the same thing. If it happens on a federal level, it really doesn't matter. It's kind of like the bump stocks.
Yep.
Hopefully it won't happen because we've still got the Senate and we've got some good people being appointed to courts. Thank you, Mr. Trump, for that one. The belief in the Constitution is kind of important. Anyway, you
Well-
got anything else you want to throw? I
well,
mean, I don't know where this is going. I'm just
yeah.
warning you all that
Yeah.
the way to win is to vote for the R's
Yes.
when the election comes up, and we'll be hammering on that for the next year and a half.
Years ago, actually just after I was old enough to vote, I became a single issue voter. And my single issue was the Second Amendment. And when you look at whoever's running, look and see what they think about the Second Amendment. And if they don't like the Second Amendment or will not support the Second Amendment, they will not support any amendment. It's not a pick and choose type thing. And with the advent of cell phones now that got pictures on them and stuff, I would advise everybody to take a picture of your gun, take a picture of the serial number, any distinguishing marks that are on the gun that's something that makes it special, and put it on to a thumb drive or something or other. Do not keep it with your guns. In case your guns get stolen, so unfortunately, they take everything else with it. So if you've got a card that's got your serial numbers written down, please do not put it with your guns.
And a very high percentage of guns that are stolen are actually recovered.
Yes.
It
Yep.
really would surprise you, but because what happens is the crook sells it to another crook who sells it to another crook, or he shoots somebody and sells it to another guy, and so on and so on. And eventually, it gets into the hands of somebody who doesn't know it's a hot gun.
Right.
And he takes it into a gun shop to have it refinished, or he sells it to a police officer or whatever, and they run the gun, or he takes it into a gun show. They run the guns coming into a gun show now normally here to see if they're hot. And guess what? It was reported stolen. You can actually check that through the state, by the way. It's a separate issue for another show, but it's possible if you're buying or selling a gun to call the Criminal History Repository in Carson City. It's part of the Attorney General's office, and ask them if Fred Smith, date of birth so-and-so, is okay to buy a gun. They'll tell you nothing in his record shows he can't buy a gun, or they'll tell you don't sell him the gun. Or they'll say, is
Where
he
is
still
Fred?
there? We're rolling units now because he's wanted for something.
Yeah.
But that way you don't get trapped in buying a gun that now you discover it's stolen, and what do you do with it now? You've lost your money, the crook won't give you a refund. This is going to be a huge problem. I got a lot of information on this, more detailed, a lot more detailed, from an organization called Nevada Carry. They have a website, nvcarry.org. Their editor is a fellow named G.C. Gates. I don't know the individual. We may have met, but I don't know him by name. He wrote a several-page, very well thought-out document on how these laws are likely to work. And it's not an article on how to get around the law. It's an article on what's likely to happen. And the way to get around this, of course, is to vote. And we're going to be hammering on that for a while. Whatever they do to screw with you, by the next election in 2020, that legislature can change it right back. So the solution is voting. One other thing it brought up is in AB 293. It lowers the amount of alcohol you can have in your system and still possess a gun to 0.10. It is 0.10. It lowers it to 0.08. Right now, for a drunk driving ticket, you need to have 0.08. If you have 0.08, you're not considered reasonably likely to drive. A lot of states, that's 0.04. But we've always had this, so you can have a gun at 0.10, but you can't have a gun at, so you're legal to have the gun, but you're not legal to drive. Now there'll be the same standard. Somebody who's 0.08 probably shouldn't be playing with a gun anyway, in my opinion. Alcohol and guns make a lot of the accidents we see, or accidents that I investigate. People lubricate themselves and then go pick up a gun and do something stupid. So I don't have any personal problem with that particular thing. It is another step to infringe gun rights. The point is, if the guy's not doing anything wrong with a gun, he shouldn't be tagged anyway. So
Yes.
whether you're 0.10 and in your own house with your own guns, does that now become a crime? That's
Yep.
where the details of these things, the enforcement happens. And with our Democratic County Commission, Democratic City Commission, the City of Las Vegas, Democrats running Henderson, the major cities here, it's likely to be a disaster. Anyway, look up nevadacarry.org. I didn't make a notice whether Nevada is spelled out, but you can find nvcarry.org or nevadacarry.org and find the information there. We are almost out of time here. So I want to remind you to check out our recent shows. They are on our, I need to move my monitor. I got to read off my desk. I forgot to run the thing. I was just talking away. But anyway, our recent shows are at www.firedupwithboberwin.com. You can find the information there and a duplicate of this show if you want to look at it. It'll be posted within an hour or so of this taping at 6:30. It also has our recent shows. Older shows are being added. The commercials keep us on the air, so please patronize our sponsors. I didn't run any commercials in this particular episode. It was too important to be screwing around with that. We'll be back next Thursday with California and Nevada Attorney Donald Green, who I spoke of a little bit earlier, who will have a lot more information. We'll know the wording of all these bills and their date of what date enforcement will happen, hopefully. When watching us on any media, please hit subscribe, and our new shows will be sent to your computer or your phone automatically. Please share these broadcasts with your friends. You can check out our logo merchandise, Capitalism Wins Every Time, Fired Up with Bob Irwin Store.com. The same Fired Up with Bob Irwin, add the word store to .com. And remember, the audio portion is repeated on the Nevada Talk Network all across Nevada, Saturdays at noon. We are dead out of time. We're within a minute. Thank you for supporting Fired Up. We appreciate it. Please don't do anything dumb. Let's vote and get rid of these guys.
And have your neighbor vote also.
Yeah, you can vote twice if you take your neighbor to vote too. Chris, thanks for coming in.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
appreciate it, Noen. Good
You
luck with your
betcha.
banquet. That's going
Thank
to be
you.
really cool.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next week with the aforementioned attorney, Donald J. Green. Thanks for listening.